We're live.
Well, welcome everyone. Bienvenidos. Here we are in August, and you have joined us today for Cultivating Voices live poetry, the first of 5 Sunday readings that we will have this month. I'm Sandy Yannone, your host and the author of Votes for Women from Salmon Poetry, and I'm joining you today from my kitchen that's been abandoned for the past month here in Olympia, Washington, but I've just returned late last night. And I'm certainly humbled and continue to remain humbled to have those of you who are joining us live here in our Zoom room studio today. And a warm welcome also to those of you watching us live from Facebook for today's reading, our wild card open mic. We have 12 readers already assembled, ready to go. They'll be reading for 6 minutes each. They've just signed up before the program in Zoom. And as I like to say, I know that everyone has so many options now for readings these days. And so I truly, truly do appreciate you returning, week after week to our reading series as we seek to offer these unique combinations, or as I like to say, constellations of writers. And I want to give a thanks again to our new book showcase readers from last Sunday, Mary Gilliland, Tamara Selman, and Max Vandersteen. Always appreciate the fabulous new book showcases, and our effort to bring back the open mic into the mix really allows for those folks who are working on new books, working on new work, to continue to showcase that work in a live setting. It's a great virtual venue. We have an enthusiastic audience from our readers and our membership. We have over 2,800 folks now worldwide in our international, intersectional, intergenerational Facebook group. So again, feel free today to post about your collections in the chat, and those of you reading. And listeners, I hope you'll consider purchasing at least one collection today from someone that you've heard their work for the first time, or for the second time, or for the third time, if you feel compelled. Our chats here are live in Zoom, and they are live in Facebook. So as I always say, please send the love to all of our writers. Well, first up today in the open mic, joining us from Olympia, Washington, is going to be Thomas A. Thomas, and it'll be Thomas, and Rosaline, and Matt Mooney. And that's our first 3 up for today. So why don't you get us started today, Thomas? And great to have you with us.
Oh, I am so delighted to be here. So honored, actually. I'm coming to you from the unceded territory of the Squaxin people this afternoon. I've got three new poems. They're fairly short. I think they'll easily fit in 6 minutes. The first one is called When It Seemed Over. I thought I should fly straight up in pure shirtless joy above the foamy lace of summer's beach as waves danced ashore, me leaping and dancing on frothing light. But a silence comes, and grief, like a shriek, like a rush of feathers, like talons sinking through my skin to bone and muscle, strikes me to stillness, to stare at those same waves, surges of ocean light, past which I might swim out to darkness. So then there's restacking the wood. I slept through something in the night, that spilled split cedar and alder onto the grass. A whole row tumbled. Fears and plans and strategies and mitigations demand my waking, yet nothing's to be done, not even the futile. So stacking wood is something. In jeans, boots, work shirt, and gloves, out back in chilly morning air, I begin. We have to do something. And this is a kayak reverie. The sun is not yet high, but the cirrus are, as I slash salt water, pull a paddle to push my kayak into wind and rising tide, as sunlight flows upon my skin, silvers a fish in midair, where an osprey wheels around sundogs and crows, and seagull calls mingle with whistles and caws, the sound of an oyster barge thrumming under all this, when a seal woman whispers her whiskers along my hull, splashes her somersault tail to send water sparks up and up, gold drops falling through blue air to sudden silence. Wind stops riffling water to let it be mirror of cirrus sky, as crows leave off chasing the sailing away long-winged osprey, and the barge stops rumbling, and my paddle and everything stops. A moment, two, then even my breathing. Here between liquid world, its dark electricity flowing beneath sky world, where bright, silent, urgent light rushes to touch it all. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you for starting us off today in our wild card open mic, Thomas, and have a great day. And as I said, yes, a great, great thing to be stacking wood. And it certainly is something. As I have a whole outside my window, a whole thing of cord of wood to attest to. That stacking of wood is certainly something. Well, next today on the open mic here, our wild card open mic, is Rosaleen Callaghan, and on deck will be Matt Mooney.
Hello, everyone. What a marvellous way to spend an evening. I'm tuning in from Derry in Northern Ireland. Thank you for the opportunity to hear the other wonderful poets this evening. And I have two poems that I would like to share with you. And the first one is called Invocare la Misericordia. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. She hears an infinitesimal flutter of pages from an open testament, as if it too wanted to close itself. Shield from the shush of his disrobing, shroud its sacred script from discarded hand-stitched vestments. She turns her face from his, shifts her gaze from ceiling to wall, and fixes upon the Holy One, nailed on a cross of wood, while she is fixed and nailed on a beastly, priestly bed, a 13 summers initiate of secret ceremony, the transubstantiation of girl to her at the sealing of the mouth. And blessed be the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. She feels her baby grow, despite the cold of her dormitory bed, where her name is not known in the dark, despite the barred windows, locked doors, deprivation, and shorn head of humiliation, in spite of the steam, the scrubbing, the ironing, in spite of the folding, the packing, the mending, despite the endless embroidery crafted with Magdalene mangled fingers, each stitch stitched in spiteful silence, friendships forbidden. Her baby grows away from her on a land she'll never see. At wrenching time, her proffered prayers fallen on the ears of a deaf God. She hadn't a prayer of mercy from the sister's heart, calloused as her rosary rigid knees. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. She hears her time run out 7 decades hence. Even the summoning seraphim shall not catch her breath of testimony past the stitching of her lips. Thank you. And the next one is called Granite. The silence of his absence is deafening, lettered in gentle gold on a granite slab underneath a carving of a guitar. He must have loved music. As a boy struggling to master frets and strings, did his mother proudly have him parade tentative notes before visitors to their home in a show of pride? Or was she harried and fretted by demands of housework and family, shouting, "Keep that racket down, would you?" The cold inscription of his date of birth and date of death, brackets in breath halls, the span of his one life. This music boy was hardly a man when felled. The graveyard slopes down a brae. Life is caught in my breathing as I move on from this grave to one further beyond and below. Life is caught in the whistle of a breeze through lamenting trees. Life is caught in the rustle of my footsteps over mourning grass. I stand at my sister's grave. It's a tender sight for a burial. Although I have been many times before, each feels like the first. Glistening gold on granite gathers her 27 years into an arrow shaft. Formless fletchings guide grief's barb to its mark, cleave a heart. Another life, too short, too short. This one felled by Féinwaru, death by one's own hands. Haiku, ultimate note. I'm very sorry. I just can't take any more. I have no more words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rosaline Callaghan, from joining us from Derry. The words that I just want to say are, never forget those Magdalene Laundry poems. I hope an anthology will be coming. I hope there's going to be an anthology somewhere that's going to commemorate this, because there's just so much powerful work. Thank you for being with us today and sharing those two very poignant poems. Well, next, also joining us from across the pond, we have just wonderful representation today from across the pond is our good friend Matt Mooney, and next on deck will be Martina McGowan. Hi, Matt.
Hi, Sandy. It's great to hear somebody from the northern side of Ireland. I always love to be able to join forces, and I will join forces now with a few poems, some new, and I will also read a poem from the new collection that you mentioned before I finish. So I will start with a poem. This poem didn't make any of the collection so far. It's still on the wings. It's been written some time ago, but this is it. I'm still attached to it. It's called Carousel. I'm on the carousel that is Dublin City, around the Spike to Middle Abbey Street, sitting at the table outside the Oval pub, spotting the red hop-on, hop-off buses gone by the GPO, and its history told of the tricolour that's flown from here to make us sovereign and forever free. On to Nelson's spell then of what's left. The loose warns us that it's going to go, serving Jervis Street and Connolly Station, flowing through the arteries of the city and the throbbing centre of the capital. A corner stall calls fruit and veg for all, in the real accents of the rare old times, worthy of the women in Moore Street, as colourful as what they've got to sell. Christy Moore is standing by the ocean in his lovesick song about Nancy Spain, in soft emotive tones deepening the day. The floral fringe spills down on top of me from hanging baskets for brightening up. Counting chimney pots across the street, there's rows of them on red brick shops whose fronts could feature on a film set. To a scenario with a strange denouement. Enter a loutish lad, complete with a bottle, who wears a foolish grin from ear to ear, moving with the gait of a man inebriated. He was having banter with a straying lady, saying, "You can spend the rest of the day looking for me now." And he followed her. The homeless are not aboard the carousel in Dublin's milieu of waistcoated waiters. Neither were they in Brussels last night, in the restaurants meant only for the rich. Just a thought as I watch the world go by. And the second poem is very new. And this is it. It's called Tantrums. The world warning us of our extinction by sudden thunder in a blackened sky, spilling buckets of rain in a cloudburst at Dahiyabadshah, drenching it. Torrents of water devouring the town from the steep inclines on every side, making the heatwave but a memory, and driving to Macroom a nightmare. So our fate reflected in Ballabuna, Homo sapiens at sea, scratching his nose, shuffling by the wall, stopping, starting, slowly shouldering his tenuous existence. By the root, a field of shorn black sheep, added to the omens already in my head, engendered by another climatic tantrum. I've got one quick one now, thank you very much. On the Dublin train, free from dreariness at last from the COVID lockdown and its damned outrages, our minds and bodies listening to the even rhythm of iron wheels on rails and the swings and rattles of the speeding train in haste from station to station. As we view the countryside comfortably together, there's joie de vivre in the air, coming from a trio now on board since Limerick Junction. A young lady in blue jeans, her knees fashionably exposed, engrossed in two young gents happily accompanying her. Her laughter in wave after wave spreads the brightness of her soul, despite the mask that mugs her until she fills the carriage for us with the exuberance of youth, gushing like bottled up champagne. Thank you. And the last poem is from the book Steering by the Stars, which I'll be reading from in November, thanks to Sandy. And it's the title poem I'm going to read. It's really a tribute to Michael Hartnett. It's for Michael Hartnett, the great poet of West Limerick, and a national, he was the national treasure and still is very, very famous. And we're proud of him in this region. Steering by the Stars. My poems are written, you said, on being told to trim your sails, to stop you drifting on rocks, and drift you did, and you left us looking into the sunset for you. Once in crossroads conversation, sitting around in the Arms Hotel in the quiet before Writers' Week, I put it to you as to where I was, or if I was on the right bus at all. Are you a poet? You threw at me in a voice that put me sitting up, knighting a vagrant soul searcher strangely by a serious challenge, led by the beck of your tilted cap. Down the road, I looked back at you, eye to eye with me, taking me on. Mine will be written too, Michael. Yes, mine will be written soon. From here, I will steer by the stars. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Matt, for steering us by the stars in your evening, and I'll certainly be looking for them later this evening. Always good to have you with us. Well, next up we have joining us from New York, Martina McGowan. Welcome. Glad you're here today.
Thanks.
And you're welcome. And on deck is Eamonn Lynskey joining us from Dublin.
I had a reading yesterday, so contrary to that, I'm going to read nothing from the book today, since it's an open mic. The first is translation for my father. One day, when I was small, you left for work and never came home. When I was small, I searched for you, never thinking you'd rest in that red clay so far from me. I talked to trees, to leaves, cloudless skies, the heavens, even the walls of my tiny room, hoping you could hear me, see me in my brokenness in spaces that could scarce contain my grief. Not knowing constellation names, in the blackness and blankness of space, I'd link several stars together, with you always as the brightest, and talk to you there, akin to a prayer, but not. Now, whenever I catch sight of a spread of wings, whether eagles or falcons, I smile to myself, you are there. Sometimes we are flying together, racing across the sky, high, majestic, and royal. Sometimes you are here, standing beside me, guiding my heart. My heart knows I will always find you in the wings, not in the heavens, so very far away from me, not yet, if ever. As I begin my own translation from those I will leave grounded, perhaps I too can become an eagle or something else worthy of remembrance. This next one is from a childhood memory. It's Love Recast in Fire. The absurdities of our youthful lives, untidy trammels to maturation, somehow miraculously survived. Spontaneous combustion alights the clothing on the back of our bedroom door. Somehow my fault, or maybe not. Nonetheless, a hasty prayer sent forth. What can I trade for my grandmother's life? How many oaths and promises can I swear in 30 seconds? How many memories can I process with the blazing inferno before my eyes? The substance and endurance of love, recast, reforged, reimagined, breaks us wide open like newborn babes in the face of fear, flames, and forfeiture. The next is my prosody. You, drifting at half speed, though sometimes so quickly I cannot follow. Sometimes you know who you are, who I am, but not always, not today. I search my own memories for the name you call me today that is not my own, seeking the time and dimension where you find yourself in this moment. I try to calm your distress, our distress. Sometimes I cannot retrieve the answers quickly enough, and I know we are on the same walkabout, the same journey into oblivion. You a few steps, or is it years ahead? And this frightens me. You inexplicably change gears, flopping back into the present. This makes you sad. You know you have missed a step, lost your place in our dance. How I wish I could hold your hand and pull you forward or back so we can travel together more often, to weave some passage into that elasticity and Velcro that now holds your mind hostage, mining the metrics into the flow of time for you. But maybe I do not wish to know the future too well. Perhaps the same Damon walks my path and I will follow when the time is ripe. Or possibly I will not know at all, lost in time, waiting for my guide, or just waiting. And the last one is very short. Rooted in miraculous possibilities, we flourish. Legacies live on and keep faith through the making of art and the nurturing of our babies, creating new anthems from saltwater air where our ancestors' bones lie but do not rest. Oh, sing the hallelujah choruses full of joy at the miracles of heaven and hands and hearts. Dance with ecstasy and abandon at the sacrifices that kept us living. Embody this unfamiliar bliss, building and birthing a new narrative on the foundations laid by the elders. Bring something from the next generation of us.
Thank you so much, Martina. Great to hear new work from you. Yeah, terrific. So glad you could join us today. Next is joining us, as I mentioned, joining us from Dublin is Eamonn Lynskey. And up after Eamonn, another one of my salmon poetry siblings, Eamonn is one of them, is Laurie Desrosiers. Great to, yeah, looking forward to hearing you both.
Okay, I read from my salmon book, It's Time. And thanks very much for the opportunity, Sandy, and everything's looking great here. Now, Matt has reservations about Homo sapiens, I hear, and I have too, at least the sapiens part, you know, being wise and all that. And I read in a newspaper, a judge making a judgment on some guys who did vandalistic things, and he said that the defendants were like Neanderthal men abiding by the laws of the jungle. And I thought, what a disservice to Neanderthal men, you know, saying that. But I wrote this. Whereas there is this widespread idea that Neanderthals had haggard haircuts, went half naked, had a wild-eyed stare, and killed and chopped each other up for food. And whereas it is said their skulls were small and like the Heidelbergensis before them, that they probably worshipped trees and stones. And yes, we're Homo sapiens, but not sapiens. I have no doubts at all but that they were kind among themselves and did not soil the ground where they lay down to sleep, and loved their kids and hoped for happiness. And then we came along. The theme of my book, if it had books and themes, is how we can be very stupid about what we're doing on the planet. And this poem I wrote when, again, I read something at the decision of Australia's Great Barrier Reef Marine Park to dump 1 million tons of dredged soil into the reef. Now, since then, there's been widespread condemnations and it's been pulled back a bit, but I think some of it has still managed to be done. It's called Lament. Where will you go my delicate sea dragons, tiny pipefish, placid yellow tangs, and clownfish, soon to be entombed beneath 3 million cubic meters of dredged spoil poured into your Great Barrier Reef. My sorrow for you, whale shark and hammerhead, and sleek green swordfish, suddenly dispossessed of your ancestral homelands. You, crayfish and damselfish, what will you do unhoused from all your fragile labyrinths of coral? Where will you flee, my panic-stricken cone snails, straggling out in long disordered lines along the ancient skeletal deposits? How will you escape, crazed refugees, the dread bombardments that will crash around you? What protection now, the camouflage that patterns you, the colors of your kingdoms? Banded sea kite, bright striped anglefish, blue surgeonfish. What use the rainbow hues of trout and wrasse against the coming onslaught? No Poseidon rises from the depths to stop the fast approaching caravels. Old Neptune and his sea nymphs are long driven from their underwater caverns, vanished like the fierce Tasmanian tiger, vanished like the Christmas Island shrew, the bubak, paradise parrot, dusky flying fox, King Island emu, red-crowned parakeet, southwestern bristlebird, white-throated pigeon, Norfolk Island silver eye. And the idea of where we are with things, the book is called It's Time. And sometimes we try to arrest time by having museums. And I was in a small town called Lincoln, and there was a small museum run by two old ladies. And they were delighted to see that we stopped and so on. Only a few people in it. It was a former schoolhouse, and it's some of the schoolhouse things of long ago, which I remember. So it's called The Ladies at the Lincoln Town Museum. The ladies are delighted that I stopped to view their small museum, a schoolroom once. They show me desks with lids that lift up, grooved for pencils, seats that slam down, yellowed wall maps. History's discardments as she cycles on her pitiless plunge into the future. Objects unremarkable in their time become now annotated fragments of the past. Outside, the ladies show me, pridefully, a church bell salvaged many years ago and stored for years again, with sides and ploughs displayed now in its heavy iron splendor. Saving things before they're swept away is one long endless battle never won, they tell me, and they laugh. Time has come, we are ourselves full sore in need of saving. They are fading in my mirror now, these two old ladies at their barricade against an enemy that would hurl horse collar hames and pitchfork into oblivion. But their Lincoln Town Museum slows the wheel enough to grab a tilly lamp, a sieve, a flail, before time picks up speed again and carries all and all of us before it. I think I have time to finish. In all this maelstrom of time going on, I mean, where are we? What do we do? And turn around and another year's gone by. So some people explain the universe in various ways. One of them is that it was just an accident that happened. I mean, I can't get a hold of that, but here it is anyway. This is called Concerning the Concept of the Universe as an Accident Waiting to Happen. The sun comes up on schedule. The clouds compose themselves and recompose themselves. The birds dig out the worms they know are there. The river surges confidently to the sea. It's only me that hesitates this morning in the park in all of this busy choreography. It doesn't seem to matter really should I walk on or sit down. This bit of gravitational mass is spinning round itself, and something really hot which spins around to something else, the lot suspended in the firmament by what? And it appears there's nothing near with freight like us aboard, not here in our celestial neighborhood. It said there's no one up there in command or pulling strings, nor ever were preliminary drafts or plans. There was this big bang, I'm told, and everything fell into place. An accident, I'm told. An accident waiting to happen. Then came rocks and trees and birds which seemed to know where they fit in. I'll just keep on walking. Sitting still in all this vast activity seems phenomenally logically not an option. So I leave you with that thought. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, and thanks for sharing those provocative poems that ask us to think about not only that it's time, but our time within time, and how we are connected to how we're moving through time and the responsibility that we have with that. Thank you so much, Eamonn. It's so great to have you with us this evening. Well, next is, as I said, another of my 7 siblings. I'm so glad that Laurie Desrosiers is able to join us today. Thank you for your 6 minutes. And after Laurie will be Amit Dahiyabadshah.
Oh, I'm very lucky to be reading today. We have some wonderful poets and readers. I'm blown away. Thank you all so far, and I'm sure the rest are good, just as good. So I'm going to read 3 pieces. The first one I wrote in near the beginning of the pandemic, and it's called Trying to Sleep During the Apocalypse. In histamine-driven midnight storm, awakened either by the red cat's whiskers or your breath, I recall the moments before my hour's sleep. Sorry. Stumbling upon a live feed of the northern lights, where I could hear the polar wind, its breath rising and falling, the breath of earth and ice and flow, the pulse of sun's electric charge. Searching for a good blank page to place in ink the element of shift. I'm sorry, hold on, I have to write back. Okay, I'm going to start at that point. Searching for a good blank page to place in ink the element of shift, to try to describe how Arctic ice's flow affects plankton and sea angels and viruses held for eons in cold embrace. How does sleep come easy to you, my love? Now you are well, and this new horror threatens from beyond our bed. 6 years ago, you in hypothermia and coma after CPR, the nurse warned me not to hold your hand or touch your skin, so my life force dare not bring you back just yet. A connection so strong we could draw the other back from death. We know little about this plague except it takes away the very breath, pulls at the sinews of our imagination, panic coursing through my body. My hand touches your forearm, and immediately my heart rate slows. You breathe your future, and I sleep. Sorry about the interruption there. That was my grandson trying to call me on Skype. So hopefully he won't call back in the next 5 minutes. Okay. This is called, I wrote it recently, You Were Like a Child when I held your head in my lap as we lay together in your bed. When I visited you in assisted living, I stroked your thin white hair, which used to be thick and brown. When you held me in your arms, as you nursed me at your breast, you wiped the milk from my chin and kissed my curious eyes, which would see your decline. When I sang to you in the room, the one song we both remembered, those were the days, my friend. Sometimes you sang along, then I had to leave you there. When you took me to the opera for my 13th birthday, we studied the program book. You told me how your mother remembered all the arias. When I tried to help you wash, you cried and were afraid. I took a soft cloth, wiped the food from your face, gently dried your irritated skin. When you were dying, my younger daughter held your fragile hand in hers, spoke words of comfort to calm both our fears. When we scattered your ashes, my girls held my hands, caressed my white hair, knew just the right words to remember you by. And I've been writing a series of, I guess you could call them prose poems or short prose this year. And they're based on this. A lot of them are about being stuck at home with one person for months and months and months, who you love but don't quite know how to deal with. I live with someone who has a very different way of looking at the world, and it was working just fine for 23 years, and it's still working, but I had to sort of learn to readjust a bit. The first bird sings before the light even hints at coming up around 4:30 a.m. Today we are arguing over whether it is a robin or another bird. So I have found what I think is definitive proof, a video of a robin singing in early morning somewhere here in New England, and I play it for him. He says, no, there are so many birds singing in the morning. They are all singing every morning, so how would he know? And I say, but this bird sings alone before the others, and I know there are mostly robins around here. They tugged at our cranberry tree and stripped it bare of berries in March a few weeks ago, seems like eons, and their numbers are diminished, but they are not gone. You are unconvinced, but most likely finished with our disagreement. I am still fishing for morning bird songs. I know I am right. The bird that kept us both awake this morning sang low, high, low, chortle, and repeat, as does the robin in this video. I lay there listening unwillingly to its song and tried to get back to sleep, but soon was listening to his low snoring breath in dissonance with the bird's song. Some days I think these moments are romantic. Some days I want to cry. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lori. It's so great to have you with us today. And I have to say, I live alone and I've had to make adjustments to the person that I live with too. So big adjustments, so I can appreciate that. Thank you so much for joining us. And I just wanted let you know, Lori had asked me if she could make a post about the Naugatuck River Review's upcoming contest. So be looking for that on the Cultivating Voices live poetry site for you to submit your work to really fine publication that Lori puts out. And thank you for being with us today. Great to have you. Well, next on the open mic, of another friend of ours that we see frequently, and happy to have you with us, Amit Dahiyabadshah. And then up next after Amit is Josephine Lore.
Thank you, Sandy. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can. You sound very clear.
Okay. I'm going to beg to be a little rude by staying off video today because on some equipment that helps me breathe and I don't want to spook anybody. The first poem is dedicated to a cousin of mine. I come from a family of farmers and soldiers, and he serves in a very elite regiment. And he and 20 Ladakh scouts captured a peak on the world's highest battlefield called the Siachen Glacier. And for that, he was decorated with the Shaurya Chakra, which is a high gallantry award. And the poem's called, so there are two kinds of mountains in North India, the ones that are very high, very cold, bitterly cold, and freezing, like -56 at night. And then there are the beautiful mountains, the ones that are covered with evergreen, that are emeraldine and inspire love and poetry. So two contrasting poems for two contrasting depths of mountains. The first is called Remember the Roar of Tigers Taking Tiger Hill. At the edge of the killing ground of battlefield Kargil, the tigers sit below the hill gathering for the kill. The killing ground runs to the clouds. They call it Tiger Hill. When the enemy took Tiger Hill, there was no one around. When winter comes, its guardians descend to lower ground. Now it's spring and melting snows, of ice and slush and freezing flows. On rough-hewn faces, anger shows a rage for Tiger Hill. And like the tiger sits the hill, silently waiting for the kill. The 17th Jarter on the ground, the bravest of the brave. Cold steel in the open now to feed the enemy grave. Come on, boys, gather around, there's man's work to be done. The enemy soils the abode of gods, he must be overrun. When the attack commenced at last, the heavens turned so still, and then cold steel and battle cry ascended up the hill. Every 100 paces one lad died, he lay there where he fell, and the 17 just kept grinding on into the jaws of hell. Then hand to hand in close combat and stab and slash and chop. With bleeding steel and insane zeal, the lads were at the top. And though the gods love sacrifice, even for them this was too much. The dead on every side lay several high, the rage and storm was such. Their fury spent, the Jarts relent, laid the enemy in stony grave, and slowly made their way back down with dead and wounded brave. The lads went home, their wounds to heal, where wheat and milk and mustard yield the blood that colors the battlefield. For one moment the heart is still. One moment the heart is still. In memory then it beats to thrill, for men driven beyond human will, and the roar of tigers taking Tiger Hill. The second poem is called Moon Drenched in Gulmarg. Beautiful, beautiful place. It's like been called heaven on earth. And on a full moon night, it was the last snowfall. And you know how hushed and silent everything gets when it's snowing. In fact, the quietest moment on earth is when the snow is falling. It absorbs all the sound. And then I heard the alarm call of a deer, and it was a full moon night. And I went out. And that's what inspired this poem. Moon Drenched in Gulmarg. Who wrote this sheet of music? Perfect notes serene. The night is dark and velvet, the snow is silver sheen, and snowy crags in counterpoint descend to join the green. Wave on wave of forest underlines a score. And if this leaves you breathless, then wait, for there is more. See how nature sings in harmony, how I love the sweet plain song, how I love the starry aria, the music that plays on. The stream and insects sing chorus, a leopard a deep bass grumble, a singing stag the sharp high notes, a cloud a steady rumble. Now somewhere in this symphony a touch of opera, the big cat takes the singing stag beneath the starry candelabra. The sight and sound are just too much. They flood hearing and vision. The great big cat keeps dining on past midnight's intermission. But through it all, low notes and high, silver streams, star sequence sky, God who loves this music too sends shooting stars to bless Kashmir as she sings a sweet, sad song of pain and happiness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amit. Thank you so much. I want to share with you all that last week on Thursday, I think of Amit as our resident tiger poet, and that I do. And last Thursday was International Tiger Day, and we held a benefit in support of. As Amit mentioned, is battling a second round of COVID. And Billy Brown, who's here in the room today, organized a benefit in support of raising some funds to purchase an oxygenator, which would tremendously help Amit's recovery and breathing. And if you would care to contribute to that endeavor for our tiger poet, I'm going to ask Kim Ports Parsons to put in the chat how you can contribute to that effort. Thank you so much for reading with us, and no apologies for being off camera. We're grateful to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thank you.
The early morning for you. Thank you. Next, as I mentioned, one of the folks who read with us for that benefit last week on International Tiger Day, Josephine Lore joining us from Calgary. Thank you for being here in the open mic today.
Thank you. I'm coming to you from Calgary, which has been settled by Europeans for about 150 years. But the land is ancient, and the people that lived here beforehand, I would like to pay tribute to them. The Piikani, the Siksika, the Kainai, Nakota, and Tsuut'ina peoples. I would like to start with a poem that I read which I created for the tribute to Amit, called Living Air. And I was inspired by something I read that he had written. We hang by a lifeline of breath, and the line is thin. I go to the forest to breathe in living cedar, to walk among the hemlock and the spruce. But the globe so swiftly warming, the woodlands a combustion, and instead of green-tinged oxygen, I breathe in smoke and ash. So I go to the ocean to inhale misty salt spray, kelp strewn at tide's low edge. But the seashore, a miasma, plastic desecration, and instead of living oxygen, I breathe in stink and waste. I go to Holy Mountain, the very peak of heaven, to breathe in pristine crystals, pure celestial air. But her pathways are congested with miles of human traffic, and instead of living oxygen, I breathe ego and despair. At last I go to the city to seek some quiet wisdom from the learned scholars there. Instead, I find contagion, the ravage of pandemic, my lungs slowly starving for that breath of living air. The second poem, Thomas started off with a poem about the clouds, and he mentioned cirrus. And I would like to read one that I wrote a little while ago. It's been extremely dry in Calgary, hot. We are under that huge heat dome and haven't had rain, I can't remember since when. A consideration of clouds. Cirrus, cumulus, stratus, the one shaped like a rabbit, Northern Europe, with England pulling slowly away. Cirrocumulus, nimbostratus, cumulonimbus, mammatus, lenticular, funnel, each shape, specific density, height, propensity. The sky immaculate as we baked under the heat dome. Then today flashes of light in the slatoning sky, the grumble of non-climaxing thunder. Oppressive air charged, and above the cinema of cloud, droplets of water trapped in the troposphere, and the earth below hungry for rain. The third one is called Dreamscape. Blue horses hiss in fields of hip-high grass as feathered fish fly across a night-bound sky. The tiger and the jackrabbit gaze at slivers of the moon as stars give chase in wild willow wind. This same wind calling my name through time, echoing my mother's name, my grandmother's, her grandmother's. This wild willow wind calling us each to this place. And the fourth one I'd like to read from my collection, which is published in 2019, the Cowichan series. And I went into a friend's mother's garden, and it was quite lovely. And beyond the garden was a wild space. And so I wrote this in dedication to my firstborn child. And it's called Untamed. You inhabit the untamed spaces outside the circle of this garden, past black-stemmed bamboo and Cirsus canadensis, whose heart-shaped leaves cash a wind chime, which tinkles as I pass. You are summoned by unseen birdsong, just past creamy lilies dotted with dew, past purple clematis, which like Icarus reach to touch the sun, past orderly fern, astilbe, potted thyme, beyond paving stone path recessed in twilight dawn. You are bramble, exposed roots, dips and fall of newborn earth, timbered scent of deep-made soil. You pull me out of comforts beyond clarity of morning. You wait and whisper to me from the wild spaces outside the circle of this garden. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josephine, for bringing your wonderful music to Cultivating Voices today. And up next is the quintessential host of Quintessential Listening on Blog Talk Radio, and Michael Anthony Ingram, who's posted about upcoming readings on Monday and Wednesday of this upcoming week. So make sure you take a look at those on our Cultivating Voices live poetry site. And Cathal is after Michael. So thanks for joining us today.
All right, great, Sandy. You're fantastic, because yes, the show will be hosted twice a week over the course of the next 2 months due to overwhelming demand. I interview poets from around the world, and actually 3 poets in the room today will be guests in the next 2 months. So I'm really pleased about that. So it makes me really happy. I'd like to share 2 poems. One is really, really short, and it's about love. And the second one is an ode to my mother. First is titled, Love Does Funny Little Things Before Dying. Love does funny little things before dying. It digs its own grave and buries all remnants of his broken and forgotten heart. Yes, love does funny little things before dying. I was in love once. Once was enough. I don't like funerals. Thank you. All right. The second one, I wrote about 25 years ago, again, as a tribute to my mother, but I think the message is universal. It's entitled Shelling Beans. Has anyone here ever had to shell any beans or shuck any corn or peel any potatoes or do anything like that? Anybody, whether you wanted to or not? My mom asked me to shell some beans for her when I was in my doctoral program, just again 25 years ago. And I thought to myself, Ma, I don't shell beans anymore. I'm in a doctoral program. I'm the king of all men. I'm wonderful. I'm perfect. I don't shell beans anymore. But I also thought to myself that all the time she shelled beans for me without question, why couldn't I do the same thing for her? I wrote the following pieces of tribute to my mother. But again, I think the message is universal, and it's titled Shelling Beans. In a small southern town, not too far from the one that you no longer claim, I recently visited my mama. I needed to get away from the maddening crowd, the both talking aloud. I am no longer what I once was. I left that back to just because. I needed to see my mama's face and behold the originator of a race. It's in the grand scheme of life. Mine was clearly without strife, but overcome the small town mentality and embrace big city formality as a gentleman, greed, and also big to fall. I want to let my mama know I had become all that and more. In the kitchen, there she sat, big, beautiful, black and fat, smiling from ear to ear. Her baby was home too long that he'd been gone. God's done come, oh, cousin Nancy snickered. See, some of her boys were in jail, so jealousy all time flickered. Mama and a love voice I proclaimed, for you, the world I've tamed, I'm bigger than big, bolder than both. When I walk, my ways paved with silver and gold. So ask me, Mama, about the places I've been and the people I've seen. Do you need some money? Hey, it shows my pockets are filled with green. Son, she said, and a voice both nice and sweet, come sit here at the table and help your mama while she's still able. Child, what a day I've seen. Grab that sack and help shell these beans. Mama said with an incredulous voice, I came back here by choice. I've been out walking with kings and queens. I did not remember anything about shelling beans. You see, shelling beans is for the common man. I gave that up when I left the land. So ask me, Mama, about my plate of riches. Do you need a new dress? I'll buy you one inlaid with gold stitches. She looked at me in her wise old way. Although I did not know exactly what she would say, I knew that it would contain the wisdom of the ages. You see, she lived a good life, therefore her life was full of pages. She said, son, don't you ever forget, no matter how big you get, that life's about more than being able to walk with kings and queens. Life's about remembering how to do common simple things like shelling beans. You see, shelling beans is a time and a task. And if you don't remember how, then I should have never asked. But it means you've forgotten that true wealth comes from the fruit of the air. Any place else, what is this real worth? So my son, tell me your story. Is it only of the riches and the glory, or is it also remembering how to do the common and simple things like shelling beans in addition to all that you've seen? Mama said, in a sheepish voice that trembled, but not by choice. I do remember. So I grabbed that sack and helped shell those beans, and we shelled, went on like hours it seemed. But on that day, I did not mind shelling beans because I shelled them at the feet of a queen. Thank you.
Serious wisdom, serious wisdom.
Keep on shelling beans, everybody.
Right. Yep. Never question the mama asking you to shell the beans, right? Yep. Thank you so much for bringing your music and story today with us today, Michael Anthony Ingram. And again, make sure you folks catch his program, Quintessential, listening on Blog Talk Radio twice a month, twice a week now. Very ambitious, and we appreciate it. Thank you. Well, next, also join it. We've had such a great array of poets today. It's been fantastic. We're down to our last three. And next is my good friend from across the pond. Also, I'm so glad to see you in the room today. And Cathal Mac Thréinfhir, thank you for being with us. My Celtic is a little off. My apologies.
Don't worry, Sandra. It's not a problem. Great to see you again. And my system is still technical. I've still got problems, so I'm flashing in and out here. So if I disappear, it's because I'm off the line again. But here we go. I have a few short poems for you tonight, and I've enjoyed the evening immensely. Thank you all. First poem is called Offering. The epigraph says, the island of Lucas had the temple of Apollo Lucates and a ledge for a leap from which one could cure love. Strabon. There was a ledge you could jump off if you had a problem with love. So here we go. I must cure myself of love and leap from off my own Leucadian cliff that falls to sea below. May wings of birds guide me gently down, Apollo, and may forgiving hands lift me safe from the sea. My reach has found only in the silent life air. The first one. And the next one's called Move to Memory, another short poem as well. Move to memory. You move to memory now, lost in the past of time's fog. Your face as no longer lingers in my mind. No
We might have lost you. Are you still there? Oh, you're not muted. So, okay, we'll see if we can bring Cathal back. I'm so sorry. He did let us know that he's having some issues. Yes. Slancha, thank you. Hopefully we can get back and hear the second poem in its entirety. Well, next up, as I was typing when is Scott Norman Rosenthal. Thanks for being with us today.
Oh, okay. Let's see. Poem on 6 birthdays, spring 1990, for Pat Lyons, Karen Fitzer, et al. We suffer agony we haven't recalled in some time. But the evening is beautiful, and the idols that grope, that scrape the belly of the sky, remind us that the whole earth is home. For Circle X, hairiest race, et al. Our fingers will not hold the spinning world. The sound of dwarves laboring in caves is music. The hearts of people burst into volcanoes out of the center of the earth. That was spring 91. In Night, for Sue King and Eric Toy. Guilt stops the opening of our small houses. We sweat, we wrestle intruders, we discover angels and the morning sky. And that was winter 91.
Thank you so much, Scott, for being with us today and bringing the seasons to my summer day. Thank you. Well, scheduled as our final reader is Marcella Remund, and but I think I'm going to extend. We have 2 folks on the waiting list, and I'd love to get them in. This is a short reading for us by the way I do things. So let's have Marcella Remund go, and then Rosaleen Crowley will be next. I'm glad to get you in. And thanks,
Thank you, Sandy. Thanks to everybody. I've been away for a while, but it's so great to be back here. I'm just so delighted. I've been experimenting with poetic forms lately, just for fun, and it's sort of a brain exercise. So I have a couple form poems I want to try out. This first one is a ghazal, which most people discover much earlier than I did. It took me a long time to get to this form. It's an Arabic form and has repeating couplets. So this is called Walking on the Edge of Night after Aga Shahid Ali. We're most fully human on the cusp, the seed of night, with pretense left behind to gather dust. Then comes the night. You walk about when all the world's gone dark, when footsteps tap Morse code in patterns meant just for the weary night. Shadows move along a wall, stretch, point long bent fingers toward the distant black, tricks of wanderlust at night. Hypnotic glitters net, stars, lake's surface, Silver maple leaves flicker. You're caught in the moon dust night. From house vents, late-hour laundress scents, soft rain, sea breeze, spring meadow, sudden gust of summer night. You keep to back alleys where past lives tower in great heaps of broken bikes, swing sets gone to rust. No play tonight. Sizzle pop and spit of snapping wires precedes a fire that lights a street, melts someone's home to crust in dead of night. The owl's silent glide, the moan of cats, the coyote's howl, harmonize with our despair or lust, the needs of night. And what of you, Marcella, creeping closer to the edge? Will you let go, release your grip on morning, trust the night? Thank you. And this next poem is a form called the Quadrillor, which is supposed to be separate little imagist poems that sort of come together in a final stanza that talks about what the heart desires. And this poem has some Irish in it, and I'd just like to apologize in advance to our Irish friends for when I destroy this language. So this is called Tara Rosh, Come Back. 1. In the market, a boy pokes his thumbs into the bulging blue eyes of a swordfish half buried in ice. A woman in black leather juggles steel rings set ablaze. She laughs when a ring slips from her hand, bounces and rolls down the alley in a whirling shower of sparks. Johnny Cash and June Carter sing in my head. 2. The sea smells green today, wet and fishy. Waves break over and around craggy boulders, slap foam along the cliff face. Out beyond the rocks, a flash of silvered blue catches sunlight, flips and turns just below the surface, disappears into the deep. Years later, I will swear it was a mermaid tale. 3. I've named the brown gull that hangs out at the bus station Jonathan. He's the size of a small cat, puffed up on garbage biscuits and sidewalk fries. He perches on the light pole beside the bus slots, flies down, jumps really, and waddles along the walk. I leave a styrofoam cup of water in the grass. 4. I'm another insomniac in the Connacht Hotel, in a room that overlooks a parking lot. I come back from the vending machines with a bag of crisps, swipe my key card to turn on the room's electricity. There is no American TV, and the instant coffee is weak brown water. Beyond the wall, at the head of the bed, the universal cries of people trying to connect. 5. Ireland is a sliver of memory stuck in my chest. My heart's muscle has healed around the shard, but the beat is different now. Syncopated 16th notes of reels and jigs. In my sleep, a red deer steps from behind Bridget's oak, bleats, Tara Rosh. Longing wakes me, my Bowron heart is a desperate rattle and call. Thank you.
Thank you for bringing the richness of those forms, bringing those forms to life. Not easy to accomplish, as folks have mentioned in the chat. So great to have you back with us. And I'll see you again soon, I hope. Thank you for sharing today. Well, as I said, folks, let's get our two waiting list poets from the open mic on. I think 12 minutes, I can spare 12 minutes for poetry, of course. So next we have Rosaleen Crowley, and then finally will be Rodica Caralas. Thank you for joining us today, both of you.
Thanks, Sandy. Really appreciate the opportunity here. You can see me? Okay. So what I'd like to do is, if you can see me, then you can see a painting behind me. And I started painting first and then writing poems about 2013, actually, when my youngest went off to college. And I found myself in Ireland for a month, and I was painting and writing. And for those of you who don't know, I live in two places. I live in Indiana here in the US, and I also live in a little town, or kind of a cute town called Youghal, Youghal. It's east of Cork City. And this is a little place not far from there. But I painted first, and I called it "It Came to Me." Standing alone in a moment in time, the connectivity of molecules in front of me remind me of touch. The stillness captures my sense of solitude, while effervescent bubbles raise my curiosity. What if my creativity could creep through and scratch the surface enough to capture the scene? The sense of balance restored gives me strength. The message is in the rhythm, the tension is in the atmosphere, and the heart can sing again. And so by painting, it gave me this energy that allowed the words to flow. I didn't know at the time that there was a word for that called ekphrastic. And so I've been doing that often. I mentioned the town called Youghal. When I go back there, I'm always excited to be there. But the responsibility of having a home there and taking care of it takes a lot of work and responsibility. So this one is called Dandelions and Moss, and the bottom line is the message is not to sweat the small stuff. A battered, rusty gate leads to an incline. Climbing upwards, I'm saddened that it's not perfect. Replacing excited pleasure with feelings of annoyance, my head shakes from side to side. Living near the sea has challenges. Mist will spray with salt and erode surfaces. Living 4,000 miles away has challenges. Instructions left are just that. Another day, it's not life or death. It's just dandelions and moss. So I'm very grateful to have the opportunity. We left Ireland 31 years ago. But we've always been over and back many times during the year. But with the pandemic, it has changed. So last year we got back and we stayed 2.5 months. And this year we hope to go next week. And we don't know what's facing us, but we'll stay a few weeks. And we're excited to connect with other writers back in Ireland. So hopefully I'll see one or two of you. The small town is called Youghal, and they used to have a very busy train service from Cork City to Youghal back in the 50s and 60s. But whether you call it progress or what you want to call it, with the roads being made better and more cars, the train stopped. And so at one point they brought the train back from Cork to Middleton, but the train from Middleton to Youghal has not returned. And there's different ways of looking. Some people want the train back and other people want more like a walkway. So this is my poem trying to battle with that. Ghosts of trains past. The people have left the town for foreign lands and other places, home again to plant seeds and harness memories of family. The city train has left the station, zigzagging through dense grasses, hooting and tooting amid curves of snake-shaped miles. Its final destination, one town over as a train blows, the people travel on the tracks of Youghal, never arriving. Ghosts of trains past to be found in the minds of locals and a few city folk who choose to remember. So I'm one of those city folks that married the guy from the small town. So, but I'm the one who brought him back there. It's just wonderful that yin and yang between city and town, you know, city and rural, and two cultures, two countries. That's really what I write a lot about. I'd like to read one very short last poem, and I found myself in my last book, Point of Perception, writing about love, and the section is Remember Love and Life. But this is really short, but I just it came through thinking of my kids, I guess, one time. Love my way. The fretting and the worry, that's my way. Dissecting symmetry of face, that's my way. Listening to your stories, that's my way. Being proud, that's my way. Being here, that's my way. That's the only way I know how to love. So I'll leave it on that. Thank you. Thanks very much again. Good to see you all.
Thank you so much, Rosaline, for bringing the ekphrastic and also the transatlantic nature. I do hope you get over next week. It's been 2 years for me, so I'm glad some folks. I'm glad you're getting back over. That's fantastic. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Well, our final poet for today is Rodica Caralas, and I'm so glad to have you with us and look forward to hearing your work.
Hi everyone, my legal name is Rodica Caralas. My pen name is Alba Lupu. I'm an immigrant from Moldova, which is Eastern Europe, and I live in Ocean Shores, Washington State, which is across the United States. Thank you so much for having me. It's difficult for me to participate in any open mics because when it's noon elsewhere, it is afternoon and my child comes from daycare or school and I've been having to say, shh, quiet, shh, quiet. So I'm gonna attempt and I hope I don't get interrupted. I only been published once and I do have a manuscript that I'm working on it to publish my first poetry collection. But I want to read the poem that got published in Lightwood Press, which is in New York Valley, and I am very grateful for being given that opportunity. This first poem, it's called I Finally Want to Live. Most days I'm okay lately, I'm functional, but then I always have been. There is something that keeps me going. How is it that I'm still here? What is it that keeps me alive? I guess I always find the reason for survival. First, it was religion. It is a sin to end your life within the religion I grew up with. But I didn't ask for this life either, did I? Then it was my daughter. She needed me. When she grew up, I thought that finally I can do whatever I want with my life. But not so fast. My son came along, or so I decide he should. Why not? It would be different, and it is in many ways, except I still have suicidal thoughts. That's how I will live for the rest of my life, thinking about it, contemplating, but never really doing it. I guess I'm too afraid. Or maybe, just maybe, I finally want to live. Thank you. As I said, I live on the Pacific Coast, and that's where I get my inspiration, and that's what I call my demons, and that's what I get my desire to continue. My reach the sea. I hope you can see that it is calming. It storms with rain and rainbows, the essence of peace and reclaiming. The roar of the waves and the rocks, its lullaby that would last as time might collapse. The reason will reach the coast. The truth will emerge from the sea. I hope you can see it. I relate a lot with Rosalie. She was reading and I was like, oh, there it is, someone else who is misplaced, displaced, trying to find identity, self-love, embrace cultures, and fight for equality. So I have a poem. I get asked a lot where I'm from, regardless what language do I write in, and so on and so forth. And this one, it's called Aren't You From There? Aren't you from there? They ask me everywhere. Something they know, so they stoop low. I love your accent. Where do you belong? I'm not a pet. I am not owned. Aren't you grateful we let you in? I earned my pass. I paid my dues. How's your country? I don't know. I haven't found it yet. The one you wouldn't claim you own. And this one, it's more of a lament. It's the last poem, and it's more of a lament of loss of friendships and loved ones with moving. And Rosalie, you're fortunate you're going back. Within a few days, I haven't been to Moldova since 2005. I'm not sure what you think of me. Not sure I care enough. Maybe I do. Because when was the last time I've called? I haven't. Because I don't know what to say. You see, I left yesterday when it was sunny and rainbows played in your hair carefree and sang a goodbye to me. Today, I woke up alone. A storm comes in like a cyclone, freezing all in the past as is, except he missed me. I moved on, or maybe I was left behind because the connections was lost. Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for closing out our reading today. I have had the good fortune to have visited ocean shores many times, having lived in Olympia, and I have to say, I understand and appreciate how what the Pacific Ocean does. That roar of the ocean has provided a lot of solace to me over time. So wonderful to have that affirmed today from your very poignant poem. So glad that you joined us and were able to close us out. A really perfect 93 minutes of poetry today, everyone. And we heard in our wild card open mic, really the essence, I think, of what Cultivating Voices live poetry is all about. This, to use Matt Mooney's word, we had a real carousel of poetry from all different perspectives and voices and time frames and perspectives. And we heard today from Thomas A. Thomas, Rosaline Callaghan, Matt Mooney, Martina McGowan, Eamonn Lynskey, Lori Desrosiers, Amit Dahiyabadshah, Josephine Lore, Michael Anthony Ingram, Cathal Thréinfhir, Scott Norman Rosenthal, Marcella Remund, Rosaleen Crowley, and Rodica Caralas. Oh my gosh, so grateful to all of you for joining us today on our wild card open mic on Cultivating Voices live poetry. If any of you have any upcoming readings or announcements, this would be a great time to type them into the chat. And a reminder, while folks might be sharing those things, join us back here next Sunday. We have our first new book showcase of August with Lila Way, Alice Petway, one of my salmon sisters, and Julie Marie Wade. And just a little heads up that August 15th, we will return with another wild open mic. You can register for all of our Cultivating Voices live poetry readings on the event pages each week. Look for them to join us live here in Zoom or watch us live from our Facebook group page. Again, I want to thank all of our readers and all of our audience members here in Zoom and live on Facebook, and those, of course, who will watch well into the week on our recordings. Thank you for joining us today. Thanks to Don Krieger for being our production wizard, as I always say, and to Kim Parsons for our glorious graphics that draw you to us each week. And I like to always kind of end with what I think today really the reading represented, which is that our humanity really depends on our deep listening of one another. Poetry provides that particular platform. So again, thank you for participating in that deep listening and deep sharing. I wish you all a very good week. Please take care of yourselves and your beloveds. We, as you know, we still are here within this pandemic, and it continues to raise itself to us and making itself known to us in so many ways. So please take good care. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. And of course, keep writing. Keep writing. Thank you all. Have a great week.
Thank you, Cindy. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.